Hi, Anna Mack here with a special announcement. We have been so busy with the Sperduti Farms Fall Harvest Festival here that we didn't have time to record an episode for this week, but we have a very special episode coming 2 weeks from now where Mary Mack talks to baker and author Maureen Aboud about her new cookbook, Lebanese Baking. Lebanese Baking is available for pre-order now, so check that out. And also go to her website where she has a ton of awesome recipes and a shop. The Sperduti Festival is next weekend as well, so if you're looking for any baked goods from Mary Mack Bakehouse, check us out there. We'll be there Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And now enjoy this repost of Pumpkin Bundt Cake with Browned Butter Icing.
Hello and welcome to In the Kitchen with Mary Mack. Today we have a delicious bundt cake recipe for you. Since we haven't had a cake in a while, 6 weeks?
Yeah, September 6th was the last one. It's so long ago.
Well, it's the year of the cake, so we're trying to keep these cakes coming. This is a really, really, really good cake. Pumpkin bundt cake. I know all things pumpkin spice are so popular right now, but this cake actually has pumpkin in it. That's the thing. I am not a pumpkin spice fan or a pumpkin flavored stuff fan, but I really like pumpkin itself. And this cake has enough pumpkin in it that it's very good.
It tastes more similar to like a pumpkin bread than like a pumpkin spice cake sort of a thing.
Yeah, it doesn't taste like a spice cake.
Pumpkin-y.
Right. It doesn't taste like a spice cake. It's very moist, and it's a sturdy sort of a dense cake, so it's a real good, it would be a nice cake to take somewhere because it's a sturdy cake, which, I always say that. But
this is a thick cake.
It's kind of funny. Yeah.
With 2 C's.
Yeah. And you don't have to have a big slice of this. I mean, you could have a small slice and it's very flavorful. So you get that delicious flavor, all the delicious flavor in a small slice. You don't need to eat a big piece of this, although I can't lie.
You can, and it's good.
Yeah, we did, and we basically ate 3/4 of this cake. We did give a couple slices away for people to test, and then we ate the rest of it. So we enjoyed it a lot. It also has a delicious icing that I found. The recipe did not have an icing with it. It was just like sugared, you just sprinkle sugar on it, which is fine. And this cake honestly could stand alone like that. It doesn't really need an icing, but I found one to drizzle on it, and it worked perfectly with this cake. It is a browned butter icing. If you've never had browned butter icing, it has like a caramel sort of a flavor to it because you actually cook the butter until the butter solids brown. You don't want it to burn, but you cook it until the butter solids brown in the pan, and then allow that to cool and use that in your icing. So it has a very good underlying caramel sort of a flavor to it. So it goes really well with the pumpkin cake. So I'll give you the ingredients like I always do, and then we will go into the instructions for it. There are a number of steps to this, but it's not a difficult cake to make for a scratch cake. It doesn't have a lot of crazy ingredients. You should have all the ingredients. And it goes pretty quick. I can honestly say that. I was pleased with how fast it came together. I've been looking for a pumpkin bundt cake recipe for a long time, and I've tried a couple that I didn't feel like some of the recipes are just not pumpkin-y, if you know what I mean. And I found this one. This is a kind of an older recipe from a Southern cookbook. The thing I love about finding older recipes from Southern recipe sources is they're always loaded with a lot of fats in them. So you know the cake is going to be moist. You know it's going to be good. You know it'll be a good cake. And this one certainly was. No exception. So here we go. You need 1 cup of salted butter softened, 1 cup of white sugar, 1 cup of packed brown sugar, 4 large eggs, beaten, 1.5 cups of canned pumpkin. Now, on that, canned pumpkin, not pumpkin pie filling, so make sure you read the cans carefully. 1.5 cups of canned pumpkin would be, they have a smaller can that's like a 15-ounce can, and that's just under 2 cups of pumpkin in there. So you could get the smaller can, then you have a little bit of pumpkin left over to give your dog for a treat, because dogs like canned pumpkin for some reason. So I'm going off on a tangent now here, but that's the amount of pumpkin that you need. And like I said, it's an easy mistake to make, so you have to read the label. You don't want pumpkin pie filling. You want just regular canned pumpkin. Okay, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and those are your wet ingredients. Now here come your dry ingredients. 3 cups of flour, and you need a little extra for flouring the pan. 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 1.5 teaspoons of pumpkin pie spice, a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and then you need 1 cup of half and half that has had 1 teaspoon of lemon juice added to it, and you need to mix those well and let them come to room temperature. We're making sour half and half out of this, like how you would make sour milk, and that'll help the cake to rise. All right, and here we go with our instructions. First, you're going to stir together your dry ingredients. So take your 3 cups of flour, your 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 1.5 teaspoons of pumpkin pie spice, a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Mix those together in a bowl and set them aside. Now, you're going to take that softened butter and get your mixer. You want to do this in a large bowl, by the way, because this makes a lot of batter. So put your softened butter in a large bowl and take your mixer and mix your butter until creamy, all right? You want to make sure there's no pieces of hard butter in here. That occasionally happens to me, and it's so annoying, so make sure that your butter is well creamed. Add your white sugar and brown sugar and beat that until fluffy. Now you're going to beat your eggs in one at a time, and always crack your eggs into a separate bowl one at a time. That way you can see if maybe you get a bad egg or a piece of shell in there. So just crack your eggs one at a time into a bowl, and then dump that egg that you've cracked into your mixture and beat it in. Add your pumpkin and vanilla and mix that in until well blended. So here we are. We're going to start adding our flour mixture a little at a time while alternating with the half and half mixture. So beat those in a little at a time at low speed, and you want to blend them well after each addition. It does make a lot of batter. I was a little unnerved when I put it in my Bundt pan, and it pretty much filled it up. When you get this all beaten well, you're going to spoon it into a prepared Bundt pan. And what I did was I took a large spoon and I just dropped the batter in until I got about half the batter into the pan. And then I took a rubber scraper and started scraping it in and leveling it in the pan a little bit at a time until I got it all in there. So now you want to just put that into your preheated oven for 50 to 60 minutes, closer to 60 to be honest. And you want to bake that until it'll look very done to you. It'll start to crack around the top. And take a pick and check that like a toothpick several times in several different places. And like I said, mine was closer to 65 minutes it took. I put it in a little bit extra because my pick, I hit a couple spots that weren't coming out clean. When you take that out of the oven, you want to put it on a cooling rack and let it cool for 15 minutes. And then after 15 minutes, you want to turn that out onto a cooling rack and let it finish cooling. And if you greased and floured it, this recipe has a lot of fat in it. So it did come out of the pan very nicely, but really make sure you grease and flour your Bundt pan well, because that is the secret of getting a good result with a Bundt cake. So turn that out onto your cooling rack after it cools in the pan for 15 minutes and let it cool. And then in the meantime, while that's cooling, you can make your brown butter icing. I got this off of Land O'Lakes website, so you know it's good. And this is a very good frosting. I was trying to think of other things you could use it on, and I have a lot of ideas in the future. So here we go. You need 4 tablespoons of butter, 2 cups of powdered sugar, 2 to 3 tablespoons of half and half, and 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla. So first, we're going to brown the butter. So put your butter in a small saucepan, a nice heavy bottomed one if you have it, over medium heat, and you want to cook and stir that for 5 to 6 minutes or until the butter just starts to turn a beautiful golden brown. It'll get foamy and bubble, so I had a small whisk and I just kept stirring it, not like beating it, but just stir it, to keep it from burning. And you'll see it'll start to turn like a beautiful golden brown color. And then you'll know you're getting there, and you can actually smell it too. When you get to that point, remove it from the heat and let that cool completely. And I just left it in that same pan and put it on a cooling rack on my table and just let it cool. Every once in a while I went over and gave it a stir, but it didn't take very long. It basically was cool by the time the cake was cool. So now, when your butter is cool, you're going to put the 2 cups of powdered sugar in a bowl and then put the browned butter into the bowl using a rubber scraper to clean your pan out real good. And you're going to add the vanilla and start to mix that. And you're going to mix that. As it's mixing, add your half and half a little bit at a time. So you're going to keep doing that until you get the consistency that you want. And the consistency we're looking for is just enough that it will drip off of a spoon. You don't want it to be fluffy like icing. You want it to be a little runnier than icing because we want it to sag when we put it on the top of the cake. So when you get it to the consistency where if you put a spoon in there and lift it up, it will drip off of a spoon, not run. You want it to just, like drip or plop off of that spoon. When you get it there, you'll know it's good. Okay. And then if it happens to thicken up on you, you can just heat that in the microwave for like 10 seconds and it'll soften right back up. So when your cake's cool, what you want to do is put your cake on a nice plate and then take your browned butter frosting a little bit at a time and just take a spoon and just drop it right around the crown of the top of the cake. And you can swish it back and forth a little bit with the spoon so it'll drizzle down each side. And this is plenty of icing to go around a bundt cake. And just do that and let it drizzle down and then let it sit and set up for a little while before slicing. And you are going to love this. This is a really good cake and a really good frosting for it. If you don't want it to be that sweet, because the cake itself really is not super sweet. And if you don't want to put frosting on it, you can either sprinkle white sugar on it or just leave it plain and then serve it with a dollop of whipped cream, which would be very good, a little bit less sweet and a little bit perhaps lighter in flavor, but it would be very good just the same. This would be a wonderful dessert for your Thanksgiving meal if you want to do something a little bit simpler that'll serve a lot of people, or just a nice bundt cake to take or treat yourself, like we said on our banana cake recipe. If you want to treat yourself with a pumpkin bundt cake, go ahead and do it. This is a good one. So I hope you give this recipe a try, and I hope you love it as much as I do.
And make sure to check us out online on Facebook and Instagram at Mary Mac Bakehouse, on Twitter at Mobile Mary Mac and Mary Mac Podcast, and on our website, marymacpodcast.com.
Thanks a lot for listening if you did, and if you didn't, too bad for you.